The Central Bank of Nigeria begins its two-day meeting amidst what is probably the most severe combination of shocks in the economy since the start of the century. The 2016 annual meetings of the African Development Bank begins in Lusaka, Zambia, with the theme Energy and Climate Change. Plus, the African Development Bank expects Africa's economy to grow 3.7% this year. Good afternoon and welcome. This is Business Incorporated on Channels Television, coming live to you from Lagos. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. Well, we'll begin with the finance leaders meeting. Of course, the group of 7 advanced economies gathered in the northeast Japanese city of Sendai for a 2-day discussion on issues ranging from the global economy, foreign exchange rates, and money laundering. The United States had issued a fresh warning to Japan against competitive currency devaluation on Saturday, exposing a rift on exchange rate policy that overshadowed a group of 7 finance leaders gathering hosted by the Asian nation. Japan and the United States are at loggerheads over currency policy, with Washington saying Tokyo has no justification to intervene in the market to stem yen gains, given the currency's moves remain orderly. As years of aggressive money printing stretch the limits of monetary policy, the G7 policy response to anemic inflation and subdued growth has become increasingly splintered. The ministers also discussed tax transparency and money laundering in the wake of the Panama Papers data leak. And German drugs and chemical company Bayer has made a $62 billion offer for U.S. seeds giant Monsanto in a deal that would create the world's biggest agricultural supplier. Both companies confirmed last week that Bayer had launched an offer for the U.S. seeds giant. Monsanto is primarily known for genetically modified crops, often leading to vocal activist criticism. The offer comes amid a wave of mergers in the industry. At the Asian market, Japanese shares have been pulled down by a sharp drop in the country's exports, which fell for the 7th consecutive month. Exports from Japan fell by 10% in April compared with the same month the previous year. Imports plunged 23%, putting the trade balance at 823 billion yen surplus. The benchmark Nikkei 225 index fell 0.5%. Mainland China's Shanghai Composite rose by 0.6%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng traded flat and closed at 19,809.03. In Australia, the benchmark ASX 200 dropped 0.6%. South Korea's Kospi index rose 0.4%. Well, let's now cross over to Europe and see how the markets there are starting off a new week. Javier Arguedas, DWTV Channels TV correspondent, is on standby to talk us through that. Good afternoon, Javier. Well, Javier, German chemical and pharmaceutical giant Bayer is offering $62 billion for Monsanto. How is that bid being digested where you are?
Well, not that well, actually, because there are some aspects that many consider could pose a risk to Bayer's future. On the one hand, the amount is enormous, $62 billion US dollars, as you already mentioned. That's more than half the company value of Bayer. And the other problem is that Bayer's management, including the CEO, is rather fresh. They are not that experienced in the position that they are now. They basically initiated their management just a few months or not that much, not a long time ago. So the problem is that they still have to prove that they know what they're doing. In other words, they just recently acquired a pharmaceutical company that they are just now integrating into the consortium. So all in all, many say, why is Bayer growing so fast? On the other hand, if you take a look at the sector in general, you already mentioned it, there have been many mergers, and if the companies do not unite, in this case Bayer and Monsanto, they'll probably not reach the scale to compete against the giants that have just come out as a result of many mergers that we have seen in the industry so far. So this is a question on whether you have an option or not, but many say that Bayer is a company that is diversified. They have other areas where they are extremely successful, including the pharmaceutical sector. So if they have to somehow give up on any of the business units in order to fulfill this merger, it could be a shame and a very big risk for the company.
All right, Javi, let's look at the PMI data coming out from Germany, France, and the Eurozone today. The markets were expecting those indices. Were they in line with the expectations?
Well, to wrap it up, we could say the German Purchasing Managers Index and the French one were above expectations, but the Eurozone's PMI was not. So this tells us, let's say, the good news, which is that Germany and France probably will have business activity that would be in line with economic. The bigger economies like Germany and France are doing well, and the slow economic activity will probably come from the smaller countries, which, as we know, are the countries that are struggling. So again, you have to put these numbers into context and keep in mind that we've had conditions that have been quite good for the European companies, including a weaker euro and the billions of euros that the European Central Bank has been pumping into the Eurozone's economy. So these results should not be that flattering, considering how many efforts there have been to shore up the economy and to help businesses get out there and generate value.
Now, the earnings report coming in today's Ryanair. The Irish low-cost carrier flew in record earnings. What does this tell, about the European